comes to controlling your emotions, not being controlled by them and not letting other people control you through emotions, is to simply not to care. People take things personally, or they say, well, I just care, I feel everything. Stop taking credit for things that don't benefit you. Stop feeling things and concerning yourself with things that are not going to be for the betterment of who you are. Hey babes, welcome back. It's me, Kia, and I'm back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to stop letting your emotions control you. I think this is a very important topic that could help a lot of people, because especially if you're looking to step into your womanhood. On this channel, we talk about our womanhood journey, going from girlhood to womanhood. And if you really want to live a life where you feel more peaceful, confident, and just secure within who you are, this is going to be a great video for you. Stepping into your womanhood is all about defining who you want to be and showing up as your best self, and that's very hard to do if you're constantly controlled by your emotions and you let the opinions and ideas and the thoughts of others, situations, and circumstances sway you. We all are probably coming from different perspectives when it relates to our emotions. Like, some of us are probably overly expressive. Some of us are probably underly expressive when it comes to our emotions. And it's good to point out that your emotions are not the enemy. They're not bad. They're just an indicator of, your feelings, your current present mood, the state that you're in. And emotions can be very effective in how we understand ourselves and interpret the world, but you're never going to be as successful as you want to be in stepping into your womanhood, owning who you are, having confidence, and just being able to be calm, cool, and collected in situations if you constantly let your emotions influence your behaviors and how you tend to interact with other people. When it comes to your womanhood and being taken seriously, emotional intelligence and emotional control is going to be key. Now, emotional intelligence has to do with your ability to perceive, understand, and evaluate the emotions of yourself and the emotions of others. And emotional control does not mean emotional suppression. It just means being emotionally appropriate in each situation. There's nothing wrong with expressing yourself. There's nothing wrong with giving emotion, but you want to give emotion in accordance to what's appropriate in the situation. You don't want to underdo it. You don't want to overdo it. But personally, I find that when you err on the side of caution and just take a step back and more so reevaluate, not completely push your emotions down or push them aside, but just kind of sit with them for a second and take a pause and say, is this worth a reaction, or is this worth a response, especially one that is charged and filled with emotion? The reason it's important to have some type of control over your emotions is because people can weaponize your emotions against you. I know we know as women, a lot of us have grown up suppressing our emotions because we've been told it's weak, or we felt like it wasn't safe enough for us to express our emotions, or maybe nobody even taught you how to process your emotions. So when you feel something, you try to just unfeel that thing as fast as you can, instead of like sitting with it, understanding it, and trying to see, what does this mean for me right now? What are these emotions trying to tell me, and how can I use this to better myself, to grow, and to interpret my way through this situation that's ultimately going to make me a better version of myself? And remember, emotional intelligence, it goes both ways. It's for yourself and it's for interacting with other people. Some people might think they're emotionally intelligent because they can perceive the emotions of people around them. They know when something's wrong. They can tell when something's off. They can feel it in the environment. Some people call themselves empaths and say they're very sensitive to other people's energy. But at the same time, are you sensitive to your own energy? And that's what trips a lot of women up, because a lot of women are so used to, perceiving and responding to the emotions of others and people around them. Being more aware of others' emotions over yours is a surefire way to put yourself in a reactionary state. It's a surefire way to find yourself in situations where you're constantly being triggered, strung along, emotionally baited, and emotionally manipulated. Because if you lack the awareness of what's going on with you, if you lack the awareness to say like, okay, this is a time where I need to take a step back. If you're not in touch and in tune with yourself, then you're leaving that door open for somebody else to observe you. And that's the thing, like, you can either observe yourself and learn yourself, your own emotions, and learn ways to like cope with them, handle them, and to distribute them appropriately depending on the situation. And if you don't, somebody is going to swoop in and find that weak spot and find a way to, you know, discredit you or find a way to make you look crazy. I'm sure people have been in those types of situations where their emotions have gotten the better of them, and though you might have been justified in the way that you felt and your emotions, overall expressing them in a certain capacity in a certain moment around particular people that don't have your best interest is not always going to yield the best result for you. That's why being in control of your emotions is better than just leaving yourself wide open to be in a situation that you will later on regret. Again, you should definitely stand in your power, own your emotions, and, you know, be comfortable to be who you are. But you might not hear this from anybody else, but as a rule of thumb, I'm going to say it is never a good idea to express your emotions to people that you don't know that they're safe to express your emotions to. It's just not, unless you know this is a safe place and people that respect you, have your best interests, whatever the case is. And yes, there's going to be certain times where maybe you might not be able to control your emotions, but as much as you can, you should always be cognizant of how you're acting or reacting or expressing yourself in company that you don't know if it's on your side or not. Because a surefire way to, you know, feel bad about yourself, lose your confidence, or make you feel like, you know, you're spiraling or you don't know who you are, is to put yourself in a position where people can point to you and discredit you and say, well, you're always being emotional, or why are you acting that way, or it's not that serious, or it's not that deep, or it's not that big of a deal. And we all know once you get in that situation, especially in the moment, and somebody tries to be like, well, what's the problem? Why are you acting like this? All it's gonna do is turn up your reaction even more. So the better thing to do is learn how to be emotionally appropriate, you know, understand yourself, control your emotions so you don't find yourself in those types of situations in the first place. Always remember, if people can trigger you, they can control you. If they can get in your head emotionally and see that you're emotionally invested in something, this is what people use to keep you in a situation and pique your interest. The more emotionally invested you are in something, the more you're going to care. Withholding your emotions until you're sure it's safe enough to express them is always going to be the wise thing to do. From a very young age, I was kind of keen to emotional manipulation and how people, even people you trust, can kind of use it against you. I remember when I was younger, if my mom would be like upset with me about something or she would get mad at me, then I would just turn around and get mad at her. And it's just kind of like, okay, you feel some type of way about me, I feel some type of way about you. And she will always come to me and say, Kia, just because I get mad at you doesn't mean you get to get mad at me. And I always thought, why not? And so from then, it was like every time if something happened and she was upset about something and I felt like, you know, it wasn't justified, or it's like, okay, you're kind of dragging the situation, because a lot of times, sometimes parents do try to like overly get you to feel like, oh, they're disappointed with you, or you shouldn't have done this, or you shouldn't have done that, because they count on you wanting their affection. They count on you wanting that closeness with them. And while, you know, at a young age, I was able to recognize it, and then every time, like, my mom would have to come and make up with me. That's just how it was, because it was like, if you're upset with me and I've already expressed that I apologize and you still want to be mad, my whole vibe was just going to be like, okay, well then stay mad. And that's how I kind of learned that, oh, people think this is a game. Like, people want you to care so that they can have the upper hand. And I'm the type of person, if you know anything about me, it's like, I just will not give you the satisfaction. Now, to be honest with you, I was the type of person that more so suppress my emotions. After learning that and dealing with something like that, it was always kind of a thing like, you know, I'm not going to let anybody get the better of me. And that had its own consequences. And I had to learn how to express my emotions. But the difference was, I wouldn't allow myself to cry, or I wouldn't allow myself to feel bad about things. So expressing your emotions doesn't mean that you tell people, oh, you hurt me, I don't like this made me feel bad. You know what I mean? It could just mean like giving yourself the platform to feel how you feel, not bottle it up, you know, cry in private, journal about it, whatever the case is. If you have to go to somebody, like I said, always go to somebody that you trust. But at the same time, If you keep your emotions to yourself and people don't really know how you feel, they can't use them against you. Now, the correct answer is emotional intelligence, and I feel like I have to say that there are a lot of books and resources that you can, read about that, and there are different tips and steps and coping mechanisms that you can look into and figure out the best way to develop emotional intelligence, cope with your emotions so that you're not controlled by them. But now the answer that I'm going to give you is also just kind of like, when it comes to controlling your emotions, not being controlled by them and not letting other people control you through emotions, is to simply not to care. A lot of times people get into their emotions, lose their head. It's because they care too much. And what is it to care about? You honestly have to ask yourself, growing into your womanhood, defining the woman that you want to be, is all about concerning yourself with the things that concern you. A wise woman is only going to involve herself in a worthy cause. A lot of things that are presented to us that are meant to trigger us and, get us emotionally invested are simply just not worth the investment. So then you have to ask yourself, it's like, why do I care so much? Especially if you're in a situation where, you're the only one that cares, or you're the one that cares the most about something that does not benefit you. So for example, a lot of times in relationships, I feel like we get bad advice. Like, say if you're, dating someone and they don't send you a good morning text, and you've told them multiple times that this is something that you want to see, and when they don't, it makes you feel bad, it makes you upset, it gets you triggered, and it makes you want to be passive aggressive or even like lash out at this person. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, like, does this person care after I've expressed this to them? Like, do they see this as important? The answer a lot of times might be no, but it's like you don't want to accept that answer. So then you put yourself in a position to be emotionally controlled, emotionally triggered, because if you care too much about that thing, that good morning text, then that person knows that whenever they want to trigger you, then they can just withhold that thing from you because you care too much. You want it so bad. Or even they might not even be thinking that deep about it. They might not be doing it to intentionally hurt you, but still they just don't really care that much. So then you have to decide, stand in your power and say, is this thing important enough to me to where I'm going to allow myself to be triggered about it? Or am I going to rearrange myself, rearrange the communication, or choose to take myself out of the situation? That's what empowering yourself and really standing in your womanhood is about. If you know me, you know a big part of my personality is kind of like, I see what you did there, and I'm not falling for it. A lot of things are a setup, and you have to be observant of yourself, of others, in situations, so you don't fall for the okie doke. Like, what is it to be triggered about? A trick that I've learned to maintain control of my emotions is, treat people in accordance to what the situation calls for. Some people, you have to ignore them because, like the example that I gave earlier, they'll stop their little silly game once they see that you're not feeding into it. Some people, you have to address them to let them know, hey, like, I see you, I see what you're doing, and you're gonna stop doing that. But the thing is, a lot of people always want to go to the addressing category, when really, if you're dealing with a person that wants to be addressed, if you're dealing with a person that feeds off of that type of energy, you should really be doing the opposite. So having emotional intelligence is learning to determine who you're dealing with. You got to treat people on a case-by-case basis. Some people, you could be like, I'm not feeding into that, it is what it is, and then case closed, it's over. Removing yourself from the situation 9 times out of 10 will give you the upper hand, and that's what I want women to know. But in the case where it's not, then that's when you address somebody and you let them know. But I would err more towards the side of like just removing yourself from the situation, because it takes 2 to tango. The next off the record tip that really is emotional intelligence is learning not to take things personally. You have to have enough confidence in yourself, and you have to already have a concept of yourself that is going to withstand the idea that somebody else might try to project on you. You have to have enough enough confidence and a strong concept of yourself that will withstand the idea of you that somebody else will try to project onto you. Honestly, what people do or don't think about you is really none of your business. If they think highly of you, great. If they don't, also great, because who cares? You already agree with yourself and you've already determined what you think about yourself is the ultimate way to be thought of, and that's just it. So anything else somebody has to add, especially if it doesn't benefit you, like, why should you care or take it into consideration? A lot of times we give people a platform to like trigger us and get us emotionally riled up, when really you could just be like, this doesn't really have anything to do with me. A lot of times people just want to hear themselves talk, they want to project, and again, 9 times out of 10, especially when somebody is saying something like, whoa, this is like negative or unwarranted, they're not really talking to you. They're either talking to themselves or they're talking to somebody else who they feel like they need to be talking to, but somehow you've been caught in the crossfire. And again, all you can do is just lean to the side and just move out the way. Like, I'm a real big like, oh, they not talking to me type of person, and not in the way of like, oh, I want you to talk to me so I can get into some drama, but like, no, seriously, like, that don't have nothing to do with me, so I'm not going to engage. I'm going to ignore it, and you could figure that out on your own, because I won't be a part. There could be so many reasons why people take things personally, but honestly, a lot of people are not used to getting attention or validation. So sometimes you have to ask yourself too, do you tend to take things personally so you can get into the victim spot, because then you'll get that validation or attention from people feeling sorry for you or making it seem like another person is coming against you? Because for me, I'm not a victim. I don't want to be in the victim mode. Like, if you try to attack me, again, I'm gonna just move out the way, because again, it takes 2 to tango, and if I can remove myself from the situation, if I can shut it down, that's what I'm going to do, and that's how you stand in your power. Remember, your self-worth and your value is not directly tied to how somebody chooses or chooses not to treat you. Though it can like help or influence this situation, it's like, if somebody wants to act up or act in a way that's unfavorable to you, it's like, why would you associate yourself with something that doesn't benefit you? And that's why when people take things personally, or they say, well, I just care, I feel everything. Stop taking credit for things that don't benefit you. Stop feeling things and concerning yourself with things that are not going to be for the betterment of who you are. Finally, you want to decide who you are and agree with that version, and take steps to make sure you're aligning with who you've decided that you want to be. This is what's going to make you feel confident. This is going to make you feel like you're owning who you are. This is what's going to make you proud of yourself. A lot of people get emotionally thrown off, or they can have their whole world turned upside down by the slightest inconvenience. Some people think they're so confident until somebody comes along and disagrees with them. Now, that's another big tricky one too, because it's like, you could think you have your thought process, your opinions, but as soon as somebody comes and says, well, I don't believe that, I don't agree with that, you'd be like, well, what do you mean? And you feel like you have to explain. But also remember, if you agree with yourself, you know that you have nothing to prove. Therefore, your emotions are just not available to be tugged and pulled, manipulated, or triggered. I hope this video helped you. Comment down below if you like this topic. I feel like having control of your emotions and standing in your power is one of the most paramount things that you have to learn how to master as you grow into your womanhood and define the type of person that you want to be, so ultimately you can be proud of yourself, proud of your decisions, and not be feeling all like wishy-washy and other people have control over you. No, you have control over yourself. If you like this video, share it with someone who it could help. Leave me a comment down below. Thumbs this video up and subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch y'all in the next video. Bye.